Part two of Q&A because the feed died for some reason. Joy with technology. So what I'll do is I'll restart with that second question about loneliness. Why we tolerate or we have those affectionate feelings. So question is why do I keep having affectionate feelings or feel lonely for the person that treated me badly? And this has to do with the thing called one of the codependent fantasies, and this is the idealization fantasy. We make them into something they aren't. And this gets us really confused because their behaviors contradict what we think or who we think they are, and then we get caught in what's called cognitive dissonance, and this locks us down into going towards the comfort zone, which is back to the fantasy, which means we're actively denying their pain and overemphasizing the moments of good we have with them. Got to remember, in the narcissistic experience specifically, the narcissist is putting their best facade forward in order to get you to bite, and then they start that devalue stage after that, and then they discard you, and then when they want you back, they go back into that love bombing phase where we idealize them. So this is why we do that, and we're doing it because we really want their love. We really want them to be who we think they are, so that one, we don't have to go through loneliness and emptiness again. Two, we'll finally get our own fantasy fulfilled, which is somebody would love us so completely, so totally, just as we are, that that love would erase all the emptiness, all the loneliness, all the shame, all the insecurity, all the feelings of not mattering or having no value. And we would be fixed. We would be finally healed, finally complete because of their love. That's the codependent fantasy in a nutshell. That's really what we're trying to get here. What really has to happen is we've got to get sober about our needs and about how we are devaluing or discarding ourselves. And we need to start healing that sense of value. And there's an intrinsic, there is a very, very counterintuitive way of actually healing one's value. Because value and needs are intrinsically linked. How your needs have been treated, how they've been valued by others, influences us directly. It helps establish this barometer of value we have. When we've had a lot of negative reflection back to us about our needs, about our existence, then our value is going to feel really low. When we raise that, then our value is going to be really high. So we actually have to heal our relationship with our needs and our wants in order for us to actually experience our true, genuine value and liberate ourselves from what's called externalized value, this proving, pleasing, fixing stuff we do in order to feel like we have value, that we have something that matters, something to contribute to the world. So we miss the toxic people in our life because of our idealization and fantasy of them, and then we get out of that by maximizing the truth or reality of the experience, which means acknowledging the pain, how badly they treated us, and not denying that pain in place of emphasizing the positive. Because frankly, guys, toxic relationships, it doesn't matter what good they're doing. It just matters that they're toxic. The healthy relationships don't have a toxic component to them. So if it's toxic, it's toxic. It doesn't matter what else is going on. Just to be blunt there. Dave asks a question. Can we idealize a relationship, or is it typically the person? Well, we can do both. You can idealize the relationship and the person. You can idealize the person. And typically you'll idealize the relationship in reflection of that, because you'll talk about the relationship through the terms of how you see the person. So I'd say both. I think that's a reasonable thing, because most people see the relationship and the person as the same. But sometimes they don't. And we can say, yeah, the relationship was terrible, but that person's really incredible, when in reality that person was pretty terrible, which is why the relationship was terrible. I see people in breakups do that a lot. They'll idealize the other person but you know, the relationship was awful, but they're a fantastic person. Were they though? Or did they treat you well? You know, what was the real condition going on? So, yeah, that can happen. Let's see. Meeting our needs is our responsibility. Could you touch on how I can find more acceptance of this? Yeah. Give yourself permission to have it. Give yourself permission to accept that I don't like having responsibility for my needs. I don't like having to tolerate this experience of having needs. I don't like that this is in my yard. I'm not comfortable with it. So you could use the flow method. I understand I don't like the responsibility for having my needs. I accept that I don't like this responsibility and how it feels to me, and I will allow myself not to like this responsibility. See, we're not denying the responsibility. We're just accepting how we feel about it right now. And that'll help you move into more acceptance, because now we're validating and acknowledging how you really feel about it so that you can feel a lot more free with it, right? You can have a lot more congruency, integration, and honesty with yourself. So meeting our needs is our responsibility fundamentally, guys, because we're not children. We're adults. And as children, we did not have the capacity to meet our needs, so that was on our parents. But that age is ended. Unless you're in here as an 8-year-old, then I'd be wondering how you got in. But we're all adults, and that means this responsibility is intrinsically ours. In fact, with children, the responsibility is still theirs. The responsibility on the parent is to teach the child how to meet their needs. Because fundamentally, the need exists in the child, so on the premise of power, and the law 1 of Thrive Strategy, which is about power and ownership and personal autonomy, the child still owns the need. It's that the parent needs to train the child how to meet that need in healthy ways. That's healthy parenting right there. Okay. Next question is learning to trust intuition. I feel like my reader for trusting my instincts is broken. How do I realign here? Well, your instincts and intuition aren't the same thing. So we want to separate that. Instincts are like hunches and things, but intuition is also a hunch, but it's this awareness about a certain thing. Don't treat your instincts and your intuition as fact. This is the big mistake everybody makes. I get a hit, I think it's intuitive, I treat it like it is intuitive, and then it doesn't pan out. Well, of course it didn't, because it wasn't intuition. Intuition is actually one of those things that pan out in hindsight. It's not something that we can use as a predictive measure. So it's important not to just jump onto a hunch or an insight or some sort of what we call intuition and treat it as a fact. And instead, you're going like, well, I have a hunch it might be this. Let's see what happens. Get curious about it. And then you're going to start to see the difference between your genuine intuition and instinct and programming, fear, things like that. That's what you want to think about there. You want to get really honest with yourself about that experience so you're not fooling yourself. Because most people you're not going to know that it's intuition until it comes to pass. So intuition is really a 20/20 hindsight kind of thing. Okay, and then I just want to review the first question I cut off in the last video so we have all this wrapped up nicely. How do you begin to get to a neutral place of not caring? We actually want to root out the assumption in that. Maybe it's not about getting to not caring. Maybe you have a different need or a different experience intrinsically available to you there. So what you want to do is use the flow method to allow yourself to move through what you're feeling so you can become more conscious about what you're actually experiencing and what you actually want to feel or need to feel in that space. How we do the flow method is we understand what we're experiencing and what we feel about it. We accept what we're going through and how we feel about it, and we allow ourselves to go through the thing we're going through and allow ourselves to feel what we do about that. This allows us to get deeper and deeper in contact with ourselves, especially if we do it in a loop. That builds a huge emotional resiliency that allows us to have a very conscious way of guiding and parenting ourselves emotionally and mentally. It immediately makes us present, which puts us back in contact with our brilliance and intuition so that we can say, hey, I have an intuition. I understand what it might be this. I accept that it might be this. And now I'm going to allow this intuition to pan itself out, that kind of thing. Guys, the flow method is an enormously flexible and useful tool that way. And I teach it quite at depth in the Codependent confidence system. So if you're looking for ways to really master your emotions, Law 3 in Codependent confidence is the training you want to go through. So you want to get into that. So that's my answer for these questions today. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for participating and taking your time out of your afternoon to spend a few moments with me. I appreciate you guys. Keep kicking butt out there. Tomorrow I'll see you for Marshall's Minute, as life has gotten weird and interesting and a little surprising. So you guys have a great day. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And I'll talk to you guys soon.